Improve it, peeps. Okay, today's show, let me just tell you, is going to blow your mind. No, for real. I say that a lot, but I mean this with my whole heart. This month on the show in August, we are talking all about health, specifically women's health. And we have the incredible Selene Yeager on the show. Selene is the host of the Hit Play Not Pause podcast. She is the content manager at Feisty Menopause and a best-selling professional health and fitness writer, including the co-author of Roar and Next Level with Dr. Stacey Sims. She lives what she writes as a NAMS certified personal trainer, PN1 certified nutrition coach, off-road racer, and former All-American Ironman triathlete. I'm tired right there. I'm tired right there, Selene, but crushing it all over the place. Also, her bio is super, super modest. Her show is amazing. She has quite the community, and she is such a light and a resource. You're going to hear all about menopause in this show. And if this is something that you don't know a lot about, you soon will. Let me say this. As part of a professional service who works with corporate America, I am here for these conversations because women go through menopause. It is a fact of life. And there's so many transitions that we are dealing with behind the scenes that we can't really talk about or don't feel like we have the opportunity to talk about at work. And I'm here to change that narrative, as is Selene. We're going to talk about menopause on this show. I'm going to tell you about my own women's health issues. And Selene is going to give us some advice, some hacks, some action steps, debunk some myths. So get ready, get yourself a notebook and pen, and let's improve it with Selene Yeager. Hi, new friend. I'm Erin Deal, business improv edutainer, fail-fluencer, and keynote speaker who is ready to help you improve your it. It being the thing that makes you, you. So think of me as your keeping it real professional development bestie who is here to help you develop yourself into the best version of you possible so you can develop your team and lead with intentionality, transparency, and authenticity. Oh, and did I mention we're improving your it through play? That's right. I'm an improvisational comedy expert who uses experiential learning to help you have your aha, ha-ha moments. Those are the moments when the light bulb goes off and you're laughing at the same time. So grab your chicken hat, your notebook, and your inner child because I'm going to take you on a journey that is both fun and transformative. Welcome to the Improve It podcast. Selene, I am so stoked to have you on the show. Thank you for being here and giving us this time.
Well, thank you, Erin. I'm psyched to be here.
I've been thinking a lot about this conversation because I think about this topic a lot because I'm going through it. So let's talk about if we could set one intention for today's show that you want to give our audience. What's an intention that you want to set for today's show?
I would like them to know that this can be the best time of their lives.
I love that. Okay. So we have, as I mentioned to you before, so many gender identifying females on this who listen to this show on this show. And I myself am in my 40s and I'm feeling my body transition. And just for a fun fact, I just confirmed my FSH levels are almost in the peri phase. So there's that. But I just, going with this theme and topic of women's health, I thought it was so awesome to have you on this show. So I want to plug your show because it's phenomenal. Hit Play Not Pause. Thank you. What inspired you to create this podcast and also Feisty Menopause?
That was my own journey. I was a semi-professional mountain bike racer for most of my 40s. And during that time, I had also co-authored a book with Dr. Stacey Sims called Roar, which was all about training and nutrition specific to women's physiology. It was groundbreaking. Not because of me, but because of her. She is a groundbreaking pioneer scientist, and it was super exciting. And we had included a chapter on menopause, and this came out in like 2016. Neither of us were really there yet. And I had heard kind of quickly that one chapter wasn't enough. And I was like, I'm not really sure what else to say. And then in my late 40s, it became abundantly clear that they were correct. I, started like all the things you hear, like it felt like overnight, right? My body composition changed. I had anxiety. I was like soaked during the night. I'd wake up like the world was coming to an end and I was rivers of sweat going down my spine. And ironically, Stacey and I were starting to talk about writing that follow-up book, which was for this menopausal audience. And I was like, I am in some trouble, sister, because if I can't get a hold of this, I can't write this book with you. And she's like, calm down, and she gave me a lot of ideas about, some adaptogens that help modulate the stress response and ways to change my training and nutrition. And we just worked with it. And once I felt like it's not like everything magically disappeared overnight, right? But like as I adapted some of these changes, I was like, okay, I get it. I understand what's going on. I can work with this system. And, it was just that process that was like, why don't more people know this? Like I learned so much about what estrogen does and progesterone does. And I had spent my whole life writing fitness and health books and co-authoring books with doctors. And I was just like, I don't know this. Nobody knows it, so I got an opportunity to start the podcast and with Feisty Media because they were looking to get into the menopause space. And I was like, 100% I will do it. And I'll tell you, it's been the best, most satisfying work of my life. I have women constantly saying, I was going to quit. I thought I was done and everything, thank you. So yeah, we're here. Here we are.
That is awesome. How long have you had the show?
I started it in October of 2020.
My God. You're crushing it. Selene, you are crushing it. That is awesome. And I will tell you, as a person who was looking for resources, you were one of the quick searches that came to me. Somebody else gave me your name and the podcast because you're right. It's such an anomaly. It feels like it's like, you kind of know when you're younger, you're going to get your period and then you wait for your period and there's conversations about it, but it's still hush. And then menopause feels like this ominous thing that no one talks about. And then when you go through it, you're like, what is happening to my body? Because I have the night sweats. I have panic. I was having like massive nocturnal panic attacks.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. And then like I would literally wake up, my hair felt like I had washed my hair. Like it was soaking wet. My pillow would be soaked. And so I started searching and Googling and doing all the things. So I'm so glad you exist. For those who may be listening today and are still kind of iffy, wondering what is menopause, could you give us like the menopause for dummies definition? How would you describe menopause to someone?
It's really just when your ovaries shut down the reproductive system, right? When they're just kind of done. And menopause is just, that's what I think gets a little lost is menopause. We know that menopause is when our period stops, right? It's like, it's one day in time. And most people don't even know it unless you're a very good tracker. I certainly didn't. At some point, I'm like, I think it's been a year. And then it becomes clear that it's been a year. But that's menopause. But what happens before that is that things just start going a little haywire, right? Sometimes you ovulate, sometimes you don't. And the hormones start just like that lovely rhythm and symphony that is your menstrual cycle just becomes completely haywire. And that's what's causing for many women, that transitionary period is the worst of it, honestly, because those hormones, they have receptors on every cell and they dictate things in your brain and your moods. And we could go on and on like these things that we've been talking about. And that period, it's funny because I went to the North American Menopause Society conference last year and, they're like, well, we used to tell women it was 2 to 3 years and now we see it can be up to 10, So I'm like, even 3 is a long time. Let's be clear. but up to 10, can we talk about this? So
this is supposed to be our best time. This is supposed to be our prime. Our 40s and 50s are supposed to be our prime. Why a decade? And that brings me to a point too that I read on your website, which I didn't know. It says no two women experience menopause the same way.
100%.
Why is that though? What can you?
It's the same reason you don't experience your period the same. I mean, because there's so many factors. It's like, what are your hormone levels? How sensitive are you to those hormone levels? And what kind of receptors do you have? Your genes have a lot to do with it. Your ethnicity has a lot to do with it. Your race has a lot to do with it. So there's just just as we do not every woman gets PMS or not every woman experiences childbirth the same. Like we are very unique hormonal creatures, so it is a unique journey, but certainly there are very common threads. I mean, 80% of women get some sort of hot flash, vasomotor symptoms, and that's very common. And there's some of the other, like the mood switches, like some of them are much more common, but some women can get really bananas kind of symptoms, like feeling like their skin is crawling all the time. That's got to be fun, right?
Oh, God. Please don't.
Burning
Please
tongue.
don't. Please no. Spare us.
Yeah.
That is so interesting to me. And you're so right. Like you think about it and you sit around with a group of your girlfriends. If you're having a conversation about your period, like every single person has a different experience. So that makes total sense to me. So why... so the lens that I sit in, right? I work mostly with corporate America. A lot of people listening are in corporate America. We have a lot of entrepreneurs, small business owners listen to the show.
Yep.
Why would you say just now, even more than ever, it's so important to have a conversation around menopause in the workplace?
Well, it's funny, that conversation is coming to the forefront. Like UK is actually way ahead of us on that conversation. Because it is, I can't give you the stats, but there have been many articles written very recently about surveys that it's hugely disruptive. And as like you were saying, women at this point are at the pinnacle of their career often. They're like in this place that they've worked their whole lives for and sacrificed their whole lives for. And you don't want that derailed by symptomology that you actually can do a lot about, right? So there's just no need to like lock yourself in the room or think you're done or maybe I just need to check out. Like that, you don't need to happen. And, let's not discount the fact that, midlife and menopause collide. And literally sometimes that's like wrecking balls on you, right? You've got aging parents, you've got kids that are maybe you're doing the FAFSA and you're trying to like figure out what college they're going to do. There's all this stuff that is enormously stressful in your life. And that can exacerbate and, create this loop with menopause because the more stressed you are, and it's harder to manage stress and it just causes this symptomology loop. So it is important that we have these conversations. And for many women, and I hear this over and over and over, like once they understand the catalyst of what they're feeling, they already feel a bit better. Like once they know, like, oh, that anxiety, I'm not losing my mind. That brain fog, I'm not losing my mind. This is hormonal. And that takes the temperature of the water down a little bit.
Yeah.
And that already gives them a bit more sense of control. Like, okay, I can address this. At least I have a target.
Totally. It's like, I'm just going to tell you for free. I was walking around, Selene, with a concussion for 6 weeks and didn't know. Okay, this is crazy. And I thought I was losing it on top of feeling perimenopausal symptoms. As soon as I realized that that's what it was, got a CT scan, everything's fine.
Good.
I was like, oh, thank you. Because now I have an answer, right? Like I know what this is. I can manage I know the actual output. I know why this is happening. Without the answer, I think I'm losing my mind. I think I'm going crazy. And without having resources like your show or books, I just read the book Hot and Bothered by, what is her name? Jancy Dunn. Jancy Dunn. I think that's who wrote that. So good. But just having resources out there to help you understand what you're going through and have answers just helps us feel A, less alone, and B, normalized, because every woman will go through this. And it is, I think, very imperative to have this conversation in the workplace so we can support each other, so we can be allies for each other, so we can say, hey, you know what? I'm having a stressful day. I have anxiety today. It's at an all-time high. I'm going to need to check out early and give grace to that person for doing that and being vulnerable and showing up in that way.
Yeah. And it's a really actually good time to be hitting menopause because you're seeing like all the Title IX women on my end of the world, who are in sport, like they're still there and they're speaking up, and there's critical mass, and there's critical mass in the workplace. You've got Oprah, opening up and talking about it, and all the celebrities talking about like it is the time. And you have these women in positions of power and platform who are knocking down those stigmas and taboos and talking about it. And that's not going back. None of those genies are going back in the bottle. So it is actually a very good time to be transparent.
I love that. Okay. And I also, I read that Oprah article immediately. I'm like, okay, if Oprah went to 7 doctors and could not get an answer for menopause.
Right.
If Oprah Winfrey went to because I had to push. I love my doctor. I love you. But I will tell you, I had to push to get that answer. I had to push for that information. It wasn't one of the forefronts of the conversation.
Well, and that's, that is infuriating, and I hear it all the time. And if you dig into the statistics, it's because they're not trained in menopause. Right. And that is infuriating. When I first started the show, I picked up a Mayo Clinic Proceedings article, I think from 2019, so it's not ancient, where only 7% of like resident physicians, and we're talking like OBGYN and family, like medicine, felt qualified, like they had been trained adequately to talk to a woman about menopause. Like a lot of them got no classes, 0, even in OBGYN residencies. And that's incredible. That's crazy.
It's crazy because, we all go through it.
So doctors still don't know. They just don't know.
Oh, I know. And so I won't go down that rabbit hole because I too was very angry and just upset by that. But I will say, being your own advocate is huge, and having a resource like yours is huge. So,
and I will say, just before we leave that, just because I do think it's a bit of service, that if you go to the North American Menopause Society's website, which is NAMS.org, I think, they have you can find a menopause trained practitioner. They have a little in your area. And that's no guarantee that, I've had some people be like, well, I didn't love that doctor. I'm like, well, it's no guarantee that you're going to love that doctor. But at least they have taken those steps to become NAM certified, and at least they know menopause and they care about menopause.
That is awesome. So the North American Menopause Society is what you said.
Yeah, NAMS, NAMS.
NAMS. Okay. We will put that in our show notes. That is so helpful. And I wish I knew that.
Yeah, it really does help because at least you're going to know, somebody like they've made the effort to learn about menopause.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, okay, I want to talk about your fitness as well, because you combined your love of fitness with the podcast, with the Feisty Menopause. So this was actually a question from one of our listeners, and they wanted to know, as we age, what is the best way for women to engage in physical activity in order to stay healthy and strong?
Lift weights, lift weights, lift weights. If you do nothing else, and if you're intimidated by that, get a trainer and go to the gym. The more the research is, it's always been good, but now it is like overwhelming for like brain health, bone health, metabolic health, moods, you name it. And muscle is your 401k, period. When you hit the menopause transition, you can lose 10% just in the transition, just from the time that you start perimenopause to the time that you finish perimenopause. And you can lose upwards of 20% of bone loss after menopause. So, strength training is so, so very important. And, for people, we all grew up in this time where it's like, oh, if you want to burn fat and stay fit, get on the treadmill. And that's just really not true. Like the strength training it should be your foundation. It really, really should be. Okay.
What's the minimum amount of weight you should use? That is my follow-up question. Like, what do you feel about a 5-pound dumbbell? Are you like, just don't? Or
I am like, just don't. If you're learning form, okay.
Yeah.
If you are, in an assisted living home, okay. But can you lift a bag of dog food? Like most of us lift things that are way heavier than 10 pounds even. It's true.
I'm just like sitting there thinking about the 3-pound weights I just used on my Peloton ride today. Like, just
Well, I mean, that is a little bit. I mean, I'm not going to tell you to get a barbell on your Peloton. Like, you're doing a little bit of a different thing there. But they have hardcore on the floor, right? The Peloton group?
Yeah, they do.
We have a lot of the hardcore of the floor ladies in our Hip Menopause Facebook group. A ton of them.
Yes, yeah. And I will tell you, I don't go over a 10-pound dumbbell. So you know what? This was empowering. So
I'm going to encourage you to do that because you can lift more than 10 pounds. I know you can.
Okay. I think I do because I have a 35-pound. Yes, and I have a 35-pound toddler. So you're right. That's 15 in each. Okay. All right. Yeah. You're right. I'm going to do it. Now, this is also a question from our audience. Are there any important supplements we should be taking as we continue our journey into menopause that you would recommend?
Such a load. I mean, because you have to obviously, be careful when you talk about supplements because there's 10 billion of them and most of them are regulated, right? So, but the ones that come up again and again on the show and that I use personally, creatine is way up there. And it's funny because creatine, I've written for all of the health and fitness magazines for almost 30 years. And creatine was one of those things that you would only see in like Men's Health for like getting jacked, right? Or bodybuilding. But there's been amazing research done on women. There's actually a paper like creatine across the lifespan in women or something that it's good for our brains. It's good for our moods, but less depression. It's good for our muscles. And if you're not taking giant doses of it because you're not trying to get all big, but it really supports a lot of our health. So as women go through menopause, that is 100% one I suggest. Magnesium is coming up quite a bit as one that's important for sleep and for metabolic health. So, that would be vitamin D is another one that pretty much everybody I interview comes up because it's a steroid, really. I mean, it's good for muscle health and bone health. And those things are so precious. I'm going to keep saying that, but it's true. No. So I think that those kind of supplements I fully would endorse.
I love it. I take magnesium, actually, not vitamin D. Got to get on the vitamin D.
Yeah, I got mine tested. And even though I spend like so much time outside, like it's still on the low end. And and I can see like it'll go right back up when I take it and then I don't, and it goes right back down. And it's very cheap. It doesn't hurt you. It's got great research. There's really no reason not to.
Yeah. And I will tell you, the magnesium at night has changed
everything
helps. For me.
It
really does. It just is like,
It's totally.
So, okay. I want to ask you this too, because just even thinking about this conversation and knowing every person experiences it differently. There's so many conversations around it, thankfully, that are happening now. But is there anything that you personally wish people knew about menopause that is not currently being discussed?
So many thoughts come to mind. I mean, I worry about the conversations that are starting to emerge because menopause is becoming a multi-billion-dollar business. And with that comes a lot of predatory marketing and fear-based marketing and fear-based conversations. And there's becoming this conversation that is framing menopause almost like a deficiency or a disease state. And it isn't. I mean, yes, there can be a lot of these symptoms that we're talking about as the hormones fluctuate and decline. And hormone therapy is largely safe. That has been shown, and it can be very helpful for many women, but also not everybody needs it, and it's your individual journey, and don't let anybody tell you that it is a disease and you must take all these things or you're going to turn to dust. It's just not, you know how you feel, work with a doctor to get yourself feeling good and then trust that process. And it's a transition and it doesn't have to be negative. I have found it's a really good time to take stock, right?
Yeah.
Just to take stock of like, who do I want to be on the other side of this? And you lose a lot of giving an F's about anything, right? I mean, you become a much more empowered person and you take stock, take care of yourself. And I think it can be a really empowering part of life, actually.
Oh, I love that. And that sets with your intention that we talked about at the top of the show. Can we dig into that a little bit more? Because You're right with this fear-based idea. Some of it, even if you Google it, it seems terrifying.
Google is always terrible.
Google is my best and worst friend. I actually hate it. But it's my frenemy. So when you think about this being the most empowering time in your life and this sort of, restocking of yourself, and I feel like I'm currently going through that actually, which is really resonating with me. I feel like I am reassessing, like I'm halfway through life. So how do I live the next half of my life in a healthier way? How do I do less? How do I not drink in excess? How do I not drink coffee in excess? How do I put more healthy things in my body versus in my, basically in my 20s, I literally I basically was a garbage can, a human walking garbage can.
Many of us are. Let's be clear. I'm living on vodka and peanut butter chips and everything's fine. Maybe some ramen noodles.
Yes. Oh man, ramen. So good. Okay. Because that is actually, this actually came up in a question from our audience member too. It's, how do we set ourselves up for success? How do we empower ourselves as we go through this journey? And one of the questions that actually came up was, how do we not drink as much socially, which I think is drinking impacts menopause and affects anxiety. So can you talk to me about empowerment and action plans for success?
It is really that taking stock, right? And with that, I got myself this little Aura ring, that I wear. And that has actually helped me take better care of myself because I can see, after I have that third glass of wine or whatever, I'm like that you can see that your readiness and your sleep score just don't react. It's a visual indicator. And most of us like to get crowns and gold stars and all this, get rewarded high scores. And it has just helped me take better care of myself and setting those intentions for yourself. Like what do you want to be on the other side of this? And setting some goals outside of that. Like whether it is, in my world, it is, I see women who have never, I just had a woman on before. She's never lifted and she just did her first powerlifting competition 6 months after she started lifting. She just loved it. She's like, I feel amazing. I feel strong. It's improved her body image. It's improved her mood. And she found this whole new thing. And I think that is exciting. Like it's exciting to think that in your 40s, in your 50s, I talk to women in their 60s, they can just go like, what's next? And actually take those steps and set goals and go through the process of trying to accomplish these new things. And that's the best way to get away from old habits is to like set some new habits.
Yes. And I feel empowered while you said that. And I feel empowered in even, in the new age. I just turned 40, but I am.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. But it was literally, Selene, I kid you not. It was like the day after my 40th birthday that I thought, I'm in perimenopause. Like it literally, all of it just came together. So, but I will tell you, it does feel empowering. At first, it felt terrifying, if I'm being honest, because it's uncharted territory. But the more I'm sitting here listening to you, the more I've had time to sit with it. I do think it could be this amazing opportunity to reevaluate where we are and where we want to go. And I do feel that empower. I feel like that 0Fs mentality a little bit more than ever. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm gonna speak my truth, and I don't care who disagrees. This is my truth, and I'm standing in my power. And that's what it feels like.
Amen. And wait till 50. Like it only gets better. Like that was the best thing about 50 was like, yeah.
Here it is. Okay,
like,
I'm ready.
Bring it. Yeah.
Bring it on. So, okay. If you could give us one hack that you have used through your menopausal journey, health hack, whatever it might be, is there something that you would share with our audience so they could implement in their own lives? Just a morning routine, evening routine, fitness hack?
There's nothing super sexy or different here, but honestly, one of the things that has also come up again and again in the show, and you've heard it before, but if you actually do it, it really helps, is taking I do it in the morning, and I've never really did this before, but I take a moment before I pick up the phone, before I do anything. I lie there and I give thanks, and I calm my mind, because your mind often starts spinning. And I think, what do I want to accomplish to this day? I give thanks for the day. And I just take a moment to just have that time to be calm in my thoughts and be centered in my thoughts before I start the day. And it's actually useful to do that another point in the day if you can, because sleep becomes super disrupted at this time of life. And one of the reasons, among many, is that the only time that we tell our brains to calm down is when we lie down at the end of the day. And the brain's like, I got some stuff that we need to go over, like, because you
got a full agenda.
We have not. I had a woman tell me, because I'm also a catastrophic thinker, so it's easy for my worries to get away. And she's like, give yourself a worry time. She's like, take 5 minutes at 3:00 in the afternoon, sit down with your espresso and just like let it rip. And then when it's done, you just tell your brain, worry time is done. We'll worry again tomorrow. And it's not perfect, but it's funny that when you train your brain in those ways, it really does have an effect. And over time, it works. Like, you just, when you get down to, I lay my head down on the pillow, it's easier for me to say, okay, brain, worry time is done. We can't do anything about anything at this point. So let's just get some rest and rejuvenate, and we'll conquer the world tomorrow.
Love it. Oh, I love it. I know I have a therapist again, which is great, which I needed one. So perimenopause brought me back to that.
It's a good thing.
It's a great thing. I'm like, why did I not for 5 years? So she talks about containers. So putting the negative things in a beautiful container and having it just be a safe space for those negative thoughts. And you can open and close the container, but once you think the thought, you put it in the container and it sits in that container till you find a time. So I love that.
Same thing. Yeah.
Same thing. Same beautiful thing. And it's like, it is so helpful and so important to give our mind those tips and tricks. So I love that. And I love the gratitude in the morning, setting an intention for the day, much like we did at the top of this show. So, which is crazy because our show is about to come to an end. And I have to ask you the question that I ask everyone, which is the name of our show, the name of our company is Improve It. And that it is that thing, that purpose that you are here to do. So what is Selene's it? What is your why or your it?
My big why is it mirrors the company Feisty Media, who I work for, is why. It's to create an empowering culture for women. So it's not to empower women. Women are empowered. They can empower themselves. But you want to create this culture like we were talking about, like everybody start talking about menopause, where they can thrive within it, right? And that is really the important piece of that. And I feel like that's sort of been my life's work, so this is really just a part of that.
So cool. So cool. I'm so glad. Like I said, we found your show. I've been devouring the show. We will make sure to put that in the show notes. But if anybody wants to find you to learn more, where can they find you and all the things?
FeistyMenopause.com is home to all of the things. They can find the podcast, and I write a blog every week, and that's the easiest way to find us.
Selene, you are awesome. And I got to tell you, it's funny because your intention at first, I'm not going to lie, it shocked me a little bit. I'm like, okay, because I've been thinking about perimenopause. Menopause is this really scary thing. And now I'm walking away feeling a little bit more empowered and owning not a little bit, I'm empowered and I'm going to own my shit. Okay.
Amen.
That's it. So thank you so much for coming on the show and for giving your voice to our audience. We'll make sure to put all the links to all the things Feisty Media and our Feisty Menopause in the show notes.
Yep.
And you have to check out her awesome show, Hit, Play, Not Pause, wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you, Selene.
Thank you.
Oh, Improve It, babes. What a show. What a woman. Thank you, Selene, for giving us the lowdown on women's health. I mean, I feel empowered. I literally feel empowered after listening and talking with Selene. I had sort of a negative taste in my mouth about menopause, if I'm being honest. And right now, it's feeling like a beautiful popsicle. That was my metaphor for the negative taste going right. Okay. It's just, it feels good. It feels empowering. Like I'm supposed to be going through this change. And it also feels like this conversation needs to happen so we can change the narrative in the workplace. So here's my ask. Here's your homework. There's so many beautiful, juicy chicken nuggets from this show. I want you to share this episode with somebody who you know who is going through the pause or is in the perimenopause. Send it to them. Send them some love. It's like sending them a bouquet of flowers because this show packs a serious punch. And it also is enlightening and heartwarming at the same time. So send this to a friend. We all have those conversations with our friends, especially women. We talk about what we're going through. This is going to make people feel less alone, and it's going to give them some wonderful resources. So share today's show. As always, if you have any questions or want to continue the conversation, you can send me an email at info@learntoimproveit.com or connect with me on Instagram at Keeping It Real Deal or LinkedIn at Erin Deal. So much amazing content coming your way in the next few weeks. So stay tuned. Thanks for listening. Pass it on. And you know what I'm going to say. I want you to keep failing, keep improving, because this world needs that special it that only you can bring. I'll see you next time. Hey friend, did you enjoy today's show? If so, head on over to iTunes to rate and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Now, did I mention that when you leave a 5-star review of the Improve It podcast, an actual team of humans does a happy dance? That's right. So leave a review for us on iTunes, screenshot it, and send me an email at info@learntoimproveit.com. I'll send you a personalized video back as a thank you. Thanks so much for listening. Improve it, peeps. I'll see you next Wednesday.